Welcome back to Africa Speaks. This is KTN News and I'm Dennis Aseto. And as promised earlier, we will be having a conversation on what has happened in Africa this week. And with that, it's all systems go for the Democratic Republic of Congo as it readies to join the East African community. But even as the Central African country prepares to join the EAC, what does that mean for EAC? What does it mean for DRC? I will be having this conversation with Onchari Oyeyo, Research Director, Center for African Progress. Onchari, so what exactly does this mean for EAC and DRC?
Thank you so much, Dennis. A number of things. Number one, of course, for EAC, that is before the joining of DRC. We're talking about an expanded market. We're talking about a new market of around 90 million plus people. We're talking about access to a wide collection of raw materials. We know DRC is the size of Western Europe, and every inch of DRC has a precious, mineral. It's full of gold. There's diamond. There's cobalt. Every smartphone that you can see around here is made up of some element of cobalt, and that is found in DRC in plenty. So this African community gets to find access to all this once they've welcomed DRC into the community.
Now, since 2019, President Felix Tshisekedi, after winning the elections, he put in motion the process of DRC joining the EAC. I mean, what has he seen that his predecessors never saw?
This African community, of course, is one of the most stable markets in Africa. Apart from, of course, some chaos in places like Somalia, and we had a moment of instability in Rwanda that has since been settled. It's one of the most peaceful areas. And in terms of market, obviously, Kenya is a landmark, country when it comes to access to the continent in terms of business. So that is what Felix has been able to see. And because the opportunity came, I think he had to embrace it. So it benefits both sides. DRC gets to benefit. That is something I think the president does not want to miss. And then, of course, the East African community, regional states, 6 of them, get to benefit once they welcome DRC into the fold. So I think, given the kind of complications DRC has had, Felix has gotten to learn that if he opens the country to the rest of East Africa, I think they'll have better chances of enhancing business, enhancing education, and obviously being able to solve problems of a political nature, of course, within DRC, instead of just closing it in and then, suffering alone.
I mean, when we're talking about population, the entire bloc will have a population of around 177 million people and an economy of 22.1 trillion shillings. So then my question would be, there are some protocols that have been put in place and pillars which are, say, the custom unions and common markets, which have come to ensure that it is easy for people to do business in the bloc. Now, with the DRC coming in, we get access to not only their population, but also to give the EAC that oomph because we have the minerals from them. So just how important are these minerals and the oomph with us trading with the rest of the world?
Of course, there is a problem with the processing. The minerals don't mean much when none of the East African community members can be able to use them for anything. But then we're talking about a gateway. For example, most of the gold from Congo, which finds its way to the rest of the world, actually passes through Nairobi. Now, the quantity that does that is very small. But once DRC comes into the fold, Kenyans will be able to go to the DRC. They'll be able to get these minerals, and if they have to sell them to the rest of the world, it will be much, much easier. And then, instead of, for example, the Americans and members of the European Union, coming to DRC and picking all these minerals directly and taking them to the US or Europe to use them in their factories and industries, African countries within the community, we're talking about Kenya, we're talking about Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and the rest of the members of the bloc, can actually be able to find access to, to DRC, and then they can get mining concessions so that we have some kind of value addition. We do the mining, we do the transportation to Kenya, then from here we sell to these companies so that these countries can also be able to benefit. And then, of course, once we're together, at some point going forward, maybe 5-10 years, we can be able to have factories within the block whereby these minerals don't have to be exported, for example, to the US or wherever, to have this value addition taking place far away from the continent.
Now, we know that for one to be able to become a member partner in the East African community, there are some of the measures that someone has to have put in place. And the reason why DRC has found it hard before to be part of the EAC was because of its past history when it comes to human rights violations and stuff like that. But now, does it mean that now that they're being inculcated into the EAC, they've sorted out that? Well,
there's nothing like perfection. Mm-hmm. And of course, like you said, the requirements which have to be met by every member before admission. And you know, the process began in 2019. And of course, each step of the way, there have been assessments being made by the community of ministers from the member states. We've had missions going to DRC to assess the progress in terms of achieving all these targets. And I think the reason as to why this admission has been given a green light is recognition of progress. It's not about perfection, but making steps towards achieving the set targets. So I think the president of DRC, together with his administration, have demonstrated not just the willingness, but practical ability to achieve those targets. And I think the community is satisfied that if we welcome these guys and support them, the goals we've set will be achieved.
Now, Tuesday next week, heads of states are meeting to discuss the issue of ratifying and formalizing DRC becoming part of EAC.
Yes.
Now, just on that alone, we know that there's also the rolling out of one of the pillars, which is having a monetary union where the entire EAC might start using a single currency.
Yes.
Just how important is that aspect for us to be able to do business with a single currency in all these 7 countries, inshallah? And also, how will this affect how we do business with the rest of the world?
Well, thank you so much. Now, the summit, that is, of course, the highest board of the EAC, will be able to make that decision, and it's done because all the assessments which were supposed to be done by the ministers have been completed. So basically what's remaining, like you said, is just ratification, and it's going to happen. Now, when it comes to the monetary union, that is not a small thing, and it will make it easy for us to do business as member states within the East African community. And once it's done, it means once you cross over to Uganda or Tanzania, you don't have to begin finding a forex bureau to change your money. So that will actually make it very easy to do business in any of the member states. Now, obviously, when we come together and form this trading bloc and monetary union, the currency will become stronger, which means anyone who wants to do business with the bloc will actually find a stronger business partner, which means the gains will be much higher for the community, for the bloc, as opposed to just one nation doing business, for example, with the Americans or the Europeans. So it will strengthen the member states. The bargaining power will, of course, go up. We're talking about a population of 177 million plus, and then obviously the benefits that will be accrued going forward will be tremendous, which will, of course, enhance economic growth for the member states. That is how we can be able to get money to develop our infrastructure. That is how we can be able to get money to finance key services like education and healthcare.
Now, finally, as we wind up on the conversation on EAC and DRC, DRC coming in then opens up the East African community to the port on the other side, which is the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
And with the issue that we've had on the Indian Ocean with Al-Shabaab and all that, just how does this then help us in terms of bringing in goods to the region, and also how will this affect the other ports that exist, that is the Mombasa port, the Dar es Salaam port?
Now, when it comes to the opening to that side of the Atlantic, that means obviously an additional inlet for goods. When we have an issue in the Indian Ocean, it means trade cannot stop. It basically means we have an alternative. And with competition obviously comes what we call development. It means that the port of Mombasa and another port, of course, has to actually do what? Be able to be upgraded. And but the main thing is we're going to have alternatives. Now the bloc can be able to find ways, instead of just relying on just Mombasa. They can also have the other side of the Atlantic to allow goods to flow into the bloc, and also outwards. It's not just inwards. Yeah.
And now let's go to Ethiopia. We know that the Tigrayan militia forces and the Ethiopian government have taken a ceasefire so that aid can get to people. How important is that for Ethiopians and the East African community?
Well, it's not just about the humanitarian aid which needs to go to the displaced persons. At the moment, we're talking about close to 500,000 people. Yeah. The UN has given us a figure of 400,000, but then according to independent estimates, the number of displaced could be as high as 500,000 or even more. So the ceasefire helps humanitarian aid to actually get to the people who have been affected by the conflicts, especially in the Tigrayan region. But then again, this forms a basis for negotiations between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, so that they can find a way to actually stop fighting. And I'm very happy that the TPLF has been able to commit itself to the cessation of hostilities, not just to allow this, but then to also allow for some talks, because the conflict has been going on for so long. It's baseless. It basically affects the stability of not just Ethiopia but the rest of the Horn of Africa. So I think it's a good way, it's a good sign, and I hope the rest of the world can be able to support both the Ethiopian government and the rebels, so they can come to the table and find a way to stop the fighting.
And maybe also Russians and Ukrainians can take a lesson from Ethiopia and TPLF and ceasefire and help that war. And I've been speaking to Onchari Oyeyo, Research Director, Center for African Progress. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now, a Nigerian school is targeting students from poor families to give them a chance to excel at science, technology, engineering and mathematics for 100 naira, equivalent to 25 cents fee a day, hoping they can hone skills that can help their families climb out of poverty. Olivia Chan reports.